Pokemon are quite literally the name of the game when it comes to, well, Pokemon. And one thing that goes hand in hand with them is the Pokedex. We would be completely lost without this high-tech encyclopedia giving us a way to catalog every Pokemon we find. But in addition to its functionality, there are also some secrets that are hidden within the Pokedex itself, specifically within the numbers that each Pokemon are assigned. There are more to some of these Pokedex numbers than you might think, which is why today we're going to be taking a deep dive into their secrets. Let's check it out. Speaking of checking things out, y'all should check out my Pokemon remixes on Spotify and other streaming services if you haven't yet. You can listen pretty much wherever you get your music. It's Pokemon music, so that's obviously a plus, and it immensely supports the channel and is also insanely easy to do. So thank you to all of you who are currently doing so, because it seriously does help me out a ton in being able to make videos just like this one for all you guys. And if you haven't already, consider checking it out because I would really appreciate it. And with that said, on to the secrets. To start us off, why don't we begin with one you might not be aware of? The Pokemon Eternatus, who was just newly introduced in Sword and Shield, is Pokemon number 400 in the Galar Pokedex, and this could have some additional meaning. Given that Eternatus' name likely comes from Eternal and Thanatos, who was the personification of death in Greek mythology, which reflects the Pokemon's villainous role and skeletal appearance, it's likely that Eternatus' Galar Dex number of 400 was reserved specifically for it, since the number 4 in Japan is also closely tied to death itself, since the number 4 and the word death have similar pronunciations. This has even led the Japanese to taking this superstition as seriously as not having a 4th floor in certain buildings, and so it's kind of a big deal there, and therefore, this could have been snuck into Pokemon Sword and Shield by the developers as a subtle reference to this superstition. Meanwhile, this next one has been around for much longer than Eternatus, and it's a lot more, should I say, jolly. Delibird is, of course, a Pokemon who was introduced in Generation 2. It is, for all intents and purposes, the Christmas Pokemon, as it combines a penguin with elements of Santa Claus, which is most prominently seen in how it carries around a bag and gives presents to both people and Pokemon. For this reason, it is most likely not a coincidence that Delibird's national Pokedex number is 225, which is essentially the date of Christmas, December 25th, just without a number 1 at the beginning. Since we've just delved into Generation 2, we might as well go one step further and look at Generation 1, as there are several Easter eggs, and possible Easter eggs, found within the dex numbers of Kanto's Pokemon. One well-known one has to do with none other than the mascot itself, Pikachu. Pikachu is number 25 in both the Kanto Dex and National Dex, and this mirrors the number of another iconic Kanto Pokemon. Meowth, in contrast to Pikachu, is number 52, and with one of these Pokemon being a cat and the other being a mouse, this is likely an intentional connection. Another possible Easter egg, meanwhile, has to do with Hitmonchan. Hitmonchan's Kanto and National Pokedex number is 107, and while you might be wondering what connection there could possibly be with a number like 107, this number could come from another iconic Nintendo boxer. Little Mac, from the Punch-Out franchise, is a boxer just like Hitmonchan, and with Punch-Out being at the peak of its popularity in the late 80s and early 90s when Pokemon Red and Blue were being developed, it might not be a coincidence that Little Mac's weight is also listed at 107 pounds, just like Hitmonchan's Pokedex number. Another Kanto Dex number secret, which is admittedly very well known, concerns the ball Pokemon Voltorb. Voltorb's Dex number is 100, which is definitely intentional, as Voltorb is partially based on a Tsukumogami, which in Japanese folklore is an inanimate object that gains the ability to come to life after 100 years, which not only fits with Voltorb's design, but also its Pokedex number. And going from one that is definitely intentional to one that's a little more up in the air, we next are going to focus on Rhyhorn. This one could absolutely be just a coincidence, but if it is, it's a pretty cool one nevertheless. As many Pokemon fans know, Rhydon, Rhyhorn's evolution, was the first Pokemon ever made. This is indicated everywhere from Rhydon's index number being 001 in the Kanto games, to Ken Sugimori literally saying that at the very least, Rhydon was amongst the first Pokemon ever created. With that said, it is definitely worth noting that Rhyhorn's Pokedex number is 111, or 111. It might not be Rhydon who has this number, and therefore could absolutely be just a coincidence, but it's either a coincidence, and a cool one at the very least, or it's another nod to Rhydon being the very first Pokemon ever created, and either way, I think that's pretty cool. Next up, we're going to take a break from Kanto Pokemon for a sec, and look at Spiritomb. Spiritomb's whole concept is that it is made up of 108 spirits that were bound to an odd keystone for their misdeeds, which is why it's certainly intentional that Spiritomb's Sinnoh Pokedex number is 108, as a reference to its lore. Meanwhile, another Pokemon that comes out of Sinnoh is Togekiss, and Togekiss's Sinnoh Dex number is 175. This is another one of those less sure ones, but 175 also just so happens to be Togepi's national Pokedex number, and obviously with Togepi being the pre-evolution to Togekiss, both of them having the Dex number 175 could be an intentional connection. Following up Sinnoh in Generation 4 was, of course, Unova in Generation 5. And a Pokemon that was introduced in Generation 5 was Archeops. As a Pokemon who is thought to be the ancestor to all bird Pokemon, it already has a lot going for it, but Archeops has even more going for it in its Dex number. So much so, in fact, that there's not one, but 2 Easter eggs hidden within its Dex number. The first is that Archeops' national Dex number, 567, is the same as its base stat total, and it is the only Pokemon to have this distinction. Furthermore, or should I say feathermore, Archeops' Dex number is also a reference to the Dewey Decimal System, as 567.9 is the number in the Decimal System for books on feathered dinosaurs, which Archeops obviously is. Meanwhile, Victini also exists within this generation, and its Dex number is very unique as it is currently the only Pokemon with a Dex number of 0, being placed at the beginning of Unova's Pokedex instead of at the end like other mythical Pokemon. With a number as unique as this, there obviously has to be some special meaning for it, and while the games technically give one, it's kind of a weak explanation that doesn't really explain anything. In terms of a real-world explanation, I think something that makes a little more sense is the idea that Victini is supposed to be a mascot of sorts for Generation 5. It's all about the letter V, and V is the Roman numeral for 5, the generation that it is a part of. So, as an unofficial mascot for the Black and White generation, Victini could have been placed at the start of Unova's Pokedex as a kind of headliner, the front cover Gen 5 Pokemon, if you will, that all other Unova Pokemon would follow behind. We're gonna go ahead and return to Kanto now, and have you ever wondered why in the Kanto Pokedex, Mewtwo comes before Mew despite being Mew's clone? I'm sure a good number of people have noticed this curiosity and scratched their heads over it, but the explanation is actually very simple, and it also gives you a little bit of insight into the development of the first Pokemon games. As is famously known, Mew was inserted into Pokemon Red and Blue at the last second, even after the game had been debugged, and since the game had been debugged at that point, that effectively means that it was finished, and everything about it was set in stone, including the Pokedex. So, Mew coming after its own clone in the Pokedex order might not make much sense from an in-universe perspective, but it's because Mew was literally put into the game after Mewtwo, and at such a late point in development that things most likely couldn't really be switched around to accommodate for the discrepancy. And going from the last Pokemon put into the games to one of the first, Lickitung actually sits right next to Hitmonchan, who we covered earlier, at number 108. And according to the English localizer of Pokemon Red and Blue, Nob Ogasawara, this number for Lickitung is possibly a dirty joke. According to Nob, the number 108 in Japanese is read as Hyakuhachi, and this rhymes with shakuhachi, which is the name of a Japanese recorder-like instrument, but it's also a slang term for blowjob, which is something that fits all too well with a Pokemon like Lickitung, which is why Nob believes that this is intentional. Finally, to finish off this video, I thought I would talk about something that is either the greatest Pokedex secret of all time, or its greatest coincidence. Basically, don't take this seriously because it is kinda silly, but it's kinda wild at the same time, which is why I wanted to mention it. So, we obviously all know that in every Pokemon generation, we get a Pikachu clone. A Pokemon that looks like Pikachu and is electric type, as a way of representing Pokemon's mascot in every new generation. Interestingly, all of the official Pikachu clones have national dex numbers that have a 7 within them. Why is this important? Because Pikachu's dex number is 25, and 2 and 5 add up to 7. There is an exception to this, however, and that's Plusle and Minun. Their dex numbers do not have a 7 within them, but they do have something else that is arguably even more crazy. If you take Plusle's dex number and add those numbers together, since Plusle is all about addition, you get 5. If you take Minun's dex number and subtract those numbers from each other, since Minun is about subtraction, you get 0. If you put 5 and 0 next to each other, you get the number 50, which is exactly twice Pikachu's dex number of 25, because there are 2 of Plusle and Minun. Mind blown. We'll see if this can hold up with whatever Pikachu clone is introduced in Scarlet and Violet, but as of right now, this is about the coolest fact that's probably not a fact that you will ever hear as far as I'm concerned, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to leave a like on this video and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And be sure to subscribe if you're new as well for more Pokemon content. With that said, I'll be back with another new video very soon, and until then, as always, thank you guys so much for watching this one. I love you all very much, and I will smell you guys later.